do the best we
My guest today is David Jackson, an entrepreneur and longtime executive director and president and CEO of Fairmont Schools, a large secular private school located in Orange County, California, serving students in preschool through 12th grade. Fairmont was founded in 1953 by Kenneth Holt, David's stepfather, and then David joined the school in a leadership role in 1979, where he remained at the helm of the institution for more than 40 years. Now semi-retired, David is the author of a new memoir detailing his life and educational leadership experiences entitled Landing at the Top: How Embracing Adventure Leads to Extraordinary Success. David Jackson, welcome to the Liberated Podcast.
Thank you very much. I look forward to this.
I'm so glad you're here. My audience, as I've told you, primarily consists of new and aspiring school founders, people who are really eager to create new educational spaces for young people all across the US. And it's just wonderful to be able to have you here as someone who has been at the helm of a successful private school for decades and has such great insights on educational leadership and entrepreneurship to share with my audience. So, really thrilled to have you here again to share your insights. I'd love to start, if we could, David, with when you joined Fairmont in 1979, after being a successful entrepreneur, busy sort of in the corporate world, and then coming into education. What was that shift like for you, going from leading companies outside of education to then leading a school in California?
It was pretty huge. As I talked about in my book, I hated school. I went through public schools. I had started my life off with double vision. They didn't figure it out until I was about 6 or 7, so I couldn't read. Everything was kind of a blur until after 3 surgeries, they fixed my eyes, and I was kind of labeled as a dummy, and I was not very impressed. My parents weren't very impressed with the teachers that I had, and I literally hated school. I didn't want to ever go. And until I had a sixth grade teacher that turned my life around by not letting me get away with what I was then used to getting away with, and believing in me and showing me that I could do it. And it changed my life. And since then, I had a couple more teachers that really inspired me. But it still wanted nothing to do with the school. And when my mom married Mr. Holt, I was just turning 15, and they I ended up working at the school, doing all kinds of odd jobs. I loved my stepfather. He was just fantastic, and he was such an inspiration to me. But as I got older, he inspired me to do a lot of things, from skiing and becoming a pilot, and believing in myself that I was able to start and actually run businesses. And I ran 3 different businesses for about 15 years. And he kept talking to me about wanting me to come into the school and take over running it. And I kept saying, no way. I don't like school, and the pay is terrible. I was making a lot more money as an entrepreneur, and then something miraculous happened. I won't go through the whole story. You can read my book and get a lot more of it, but I decided to sell my school. I decided to sell my businesses, and was out looking to what I was going to do, stopped by the school, saw my aunt who was running the school because my parents had finally left to go on a mission for our church that they wanted to do. And she convinced me that I should take over running the school because my oldest son was just turning 5, and I would be able to see him every day, which I hadn't been used to. And I had an inspiration from God that said, this is what you're supposed to do. And it was life-changing for me. I took over in 1979, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I always loved being around kids. And but the one of the big parts for me was I called my parents with my aunt on the phone when I decided to do this, and told them that I would like to do it. They were overjoyed, but I told my dad, I called my stepdad my dad at that point because that's what he was for me, that would you know, I'm going to give my phone to my assistant. Um, that I never ran a school before. And are you sure this is all right? And he told me, I've watched you and worked with you as you've run these businesses, and I recognize you're really good at it. You know what you're doing. You know the most important thing is to hire the very best people, give them everything they need, and hold their feet to the fire. That's what I expect you to do at Fairmont, and to hire the very best teachers and administrators, give them everything they need, and then make sure that they are the best because you're there for the kids. And I figured that out. And that's probably one of the greatest things that I feel like I learned was hire only good to great teachers, give them everything they need, and then make sure that they are that. And if not, help them find somewhere else to go, but stick with having only, and at this point now, I feel like only great teachers. The difference between a good teacher and a great teacher is equally huge as it is between an okay, mediocre teacher and a good teacher. And that's what makes the difference in schools.
Yeah. So, what were some of the challenges that you encountered as the CEO, president, executive director of Fairmont for so many years? What were some of those leadership challenges that you encountered? And, were they different perhaps from some of the leadership challenges you encountered as an entrepreneur prior to joining Fairmont?
Yeah, some of them were, and some of them were very, very similar. And I think it's what any entrepreneur and anyone facing almost everything in life faces, that you have those soothsayers, you have those people that are always anxious to tell you, you can't do that. Are you kidding? You can't start a school, or you can't succeed in this. And I've really found that again, that's what I really wrote this book about, was to help people to say, don't listen to them. If it's something you really want to do, if you want to start your own school, if you want to do it just at your home first, expand it or whatever else, if you really want to, you can do it. And if it's something that you have passion for and you are willing to work hard, then go for it and look for the people that can help you, that can partner with you, that can help you to be successful. And that's what I found. The challenges that I ran into at very first was all of a sudden I knew a lot of the teachers and a lot of the people there at Fairmont because I'd worked there as a young person and up until I started college. And it was, you're going to run the school?
Mhm.
Oh, you'd never be like your dad. You can't do this and that. And I
Mm.
had to prove to them and myself that I could do it. And that was a challenge. But over time, it was successful. And I listened to them a lot. I listened to everybody. And I recognized that, as I told my dad, I've not run a school before. I've run other businesses, but I want to find from you teachers and you administrators, what works the best. And that's what I did. And I even created my own Fairmont teacher program with 13 attributes of a great Fairmont teacher. All the different things from, you know, uh, going the extra mile, having such passion for what you're doing, loving kids, being really good at the subject area or subject areas that you're going to be teaching, and so on and so forth. And that's what I then would base on hiring only the greatest teachers.
Yeah, and I love that leadership lesson, David, around sort of humility, going in and saying, I've never run a school before. I want to listen to you. I want to hear from you. And then being certain to fill your school with great teachers, not just good teachers, but great teachers and staff, and really supporting their development over time. And Fairmont saw tremendous growth and success over your tenure. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your own expansion efforts with Fairmont and some of the impact that the school had during your tenure.
When I took over, Fairmont had really one campus with a little satellite right down the street, um, and we had 500 students, and we were full, and we were turning away people, and real quickly, I realized that I needed to learn so much more, so I went out and visited a lot of other schools, along with talking to our own people.
Mm.
I actually visited some of the public schools. I talked to superintendents of schools where I could. Some of them would listen to me, some wouldn't even meet with me because I was a private school. And I feel like I learned so much that way. But real quickly, I didn't like the feeling of people and families wanting to almost bribe me, browbeat me, whatever else. They want their kids into school and saying, we're full. I can't take anymore. And they get all upset. And I said, well, why don't I just expand it? Why don't I add more
Mm.
or first more classrooms and find ways to do that? It wasn't easy. Um, but I was able to, I feel like through prayer and through persistence and some of my experience in expanding my other businesses, was successful at doing that. And in fact, to the point that I expanded in some cases so rapidly that now I needed to do a lot more marketing to make sure that I could fill the school because I had a lot more space. And throughout the years, there's all kinds of issues. The economy goes south. And when that happens with you with a private school, it's really tough. And because our competition in a private school and anybody else that's starting their own, if you're looking to expand, is 90% of your competition is the public system. And it's from their point of view, it's free and it's right in the neighborhood. And you need to go ahead and convince them that what you're doing is worth the extra they're going to have to pay because their tax money still goes to the schools and they don't get any refund. And that's the good thing of choice in education. It's helping in a lot of places. It's not very helpful in California, but a lot of states it is, and you can help take advantage of that. But it's a challenge. But if you don't give up, it works. And I loved that wonderful feeling of expanding. And probably one of the most difficult times for me was when after several years I had expanded and I had now two other campuses that were going. And then I wanted to start the high school, which was a huge, big change. And I had more um, flack from everybody on that. In fact, I couldn't think of anybody, including my own wife, my parents, that agreed with me. They all felt like this is going to take the school under. You're doing too much. I'm never going to see you anymore. You can't start this high school. And I really weighed that and went to God and said, I'm going to do it anyway. And it was probably one of the best things I did, along with hiring great teachers in my career at Fairmont, was starting the high school. It was also one of the hardest, and it took a while for it to really be successful, but it's been successful beyond my own dreams. But I didn't give up, and I just say to you, if you want to do it, don't give up on it. And I love telling people, tell me any industry that as important to your family, to your neighbors, to the community, and to the world at large than education for our kids. Giving them the greatest education is more important than anything else. If our kids can leave here really knowing a lot more than they did before, believing in themselves, they can go out and be successful. We wouldn't need as many doctors, lawyers, and others to take care of all the ills because everybody would be able to really be self-reliant and take care of themselves and believe in themselves. And that's why I want to encourage more. Get out there and help fix it because the system in our country and throughout most of the world is is pretty broken and is not great. And there's a lot of you out there that can do a lot to make it better. And that's part of choice. I so firmly believe in choice in education to give the families. It's up to you as a parent and the kids to pick what's best for them. And the cookie cutter public system has a lot of flaws. It can be fixed and improved, but so far I'm not seeing anybody really doing it.
So much richness there in what you've said, David. I'd love to double click a little bit, if we could, on scaling, growing, expanding, because a lot of the founders that I talk to are in a similar position, I think, to where you were in your early days of at the helm of Fairmont, where they are filled to capacity. There is clear family demand in their community for their school. they might have, long wait lists and are just heartbroken that they can't bring on more students, but they just simply, don't have the space at that moment. And they're weighing, do we expand or not? How do we do that? Similarly, I hear from a lot of founders who intend to create a K-8 program or maybe a K-5 program. And then, like you as well, they see this demand to go up into higher grades, either into middle school or high school, which presents its own challenge. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more strategically about what founders should think about as they decide whether or not to open a new campus or expand vertically in their own school. What are some strategies you'd suggest?
Over the years, as I worked with and helped quite a few other entrepreneurs even start a school and decide whether to expand, many of them were very happy and satisfied with the size that they had gotten to, and I think that's great. I have found that financially, to be able to offer more and more, having too small of a school is really tough. The whole thing of scale, having more can make it a lot easier, a lot better. But don't get too big
Yeah.
one campus because then you lose. That's part of what I see with many, especially public schools, that the faculty, the others, they only know a few of the kids, where it's really fantastic where your campus director and leaders, they know all the kids and they know them all by name. So I've kind of found that between 400, 500 is 600 maybe at the max for most campuses is a great size. You can offer a lot more. Um, the big challenge is the facilities. Uh, Public schools are able to go ahead and put in because they have eminent domain. They can go ahead and say, we're going to put a school here, and the government gives them the power to go ahead and do it. It's a lot harder to find locations for as a private school. A couple of things come to my mind that I found successful was um, sometimes you can partner with churches that don't have a school for their facilities because in most cases they're not using the facilities during the school day and they use them in the evening. And we've done a little of that. And then just trying to find different things and just be kind of wild and crazy and look into it. Some of the things right now with what's happening with retail businesses, there's some malls and other things that are closed that you might be able to work out something there. There's sometimes, but it's pretty difficult. But I know some have worked out where public schools, their numbers have gone down in some areas, and they've been able to go ahead and lease. Very seldom do they ever sell it to them. That's a little tricky because sometimes they pull the lease, and now where are you going to go? But there's chances to do there. Um, One of the crazy things that I came up with, but I ran into the problem while my parents served actually three missions overseas, and so they were gone most of the time while I was running the schools, and they were a little bit, they weren't very open to allowing me to use the properties to um, to finance building.
Hmm.
And I didn't have I had a couple of times where my wife went along with me to refinance our house to put some money into it. But I found one thing when my father wouldn't go along with me expanding unless I came up with the money. I recognized what universities had done in some cases. And this was kind of crazy. And I had a lot of people said, how are you going to do that? And it worked for me was I went ahead and put together a plan that I would sell multi-year tuition at a discount so I can get
Hmm.
money up front. And but it worked for me because I was able to raise, in one case, the first time I did it, a little over $1 million that allowed me to expand the campus and build more classrooms and such. And that gave me more students available. And because of that, I was able to allow myself to give, in some cases, a 6 to 8% discount for these families by paying for 5 to 10 years in advance. And it worked really well. I did that about 3 or 4 times before I got to the point where I had purchased some of the land by mortgaging my place and growing and just just doing it. And it takes years to do it, but it's worked out. And so there are ways to do it. There are ways to get together with other parents. Sometimes you can go ahead and go nonprofit and try and raise money. That's a challenge and difficulty, but it's if you want to do it, there are ways to do it.
Yeah, I love that creative problem solving, creative pricing, to be able to reach some of your goals. And then recognize that entrepreneurship is inherently risky. That's why not everyone is an entrepreneur because it does take that courage and that boldness to say, gee, I think this is going to work. It's going to take some risk. You have to mortgage your house or take out a loan, but you have confidence that it'll pay off. And in the case of Fairmont and your leadership there, it certainly has. Tell us a little bit about where Fairmont is now, in terms of size, locations. What is the snapshot at the moment?
Well, I expanded 1.6 campuses and then found that one of them, that the location demographics change and you have to adjust. And I eventually moved those kids back into our other campuses nearby and sold that one facility. But at this point, we have 5 campuses in Orange County, California, um, from South County, San Juan Capistrano, which is our newest campus. And it was just being there at the right time. I've had several times where I wanted to do it, and I feel like I really rely on the Lord to inspire me and to help me and to help make things happen. You find the right places. The picture that you're looking at here is my high school campus, and at the right time that I started it, I was successful at being able to buy through an auction because the economy had tanked in the 1990s, early 90s, and was able to get an incredible deal on the facility, and then made a deal with the property next door that if they ever were going to sell, they would give me a rate. And so I was able to, over about a 10-year period, expand the school to where it's on about 6.5 acres, which is small for a lot of schools, but for a private school, it works out great. And and then the same thing with San Juan Capistrano, finding it at the right time, the right place. But there were all kinds of difficulties with it, and it didn't look like it was going to go through. But through work, hard work, partnering with people, and prayer, uh, it worked. And we ended up starting off that campus right at the beginning of the pandemic,
Hmm.
which was scary. And but we made it work. And now we
Yeah.
went from starting right at the beginning of the pandemic, it closed down, and then we were able to get it open, but we did remote, and we started with just under 100 students, and now we have over 650 students, and we're going to grow to 850, and God willing, if we can expand there, I hope to expand and have another high school down there. But
So that's total or just in that one
We
location?
have we have
What's
over
your
we
total
now have
enrollment?
about 3,500 students in
Wow.
all 5 of the campuses altogether, along with we have at this point we have about 8 international campuses in China, in mainland China, in Taiwan, and in Korea. And those are what we call partnership schools. We didn't want to invest any money, especially in mainland China. That's too risky. Um, and but we do a partnership where we partner with the school and we provide a lot of the the training for teachers. We help them with people to even hiring their teachers, bringing them over here and doing a little training here. We help them with college preparation and with helping them to get into colleges with that, because most of them, in our cases, they want us because they want their kids to be able to come over here to some of our top universities. We end up having quite a few that come and go to our schools here too, but that's been helpful. But the big focus, primary focus, has always been over here, and preschool through high school. And the greatest joy is listening to and seeing how successful these kids are. One of the things that I've been doing for many years is uh, for I was sending birthday cards to all of our students and all of our faculty on their birthdays, And then I found when they started graduating from our high school, I saw that that just wasn't enough. They were used to getting birthday cards with no big deal. So I started calling them on their birthday. And it became a huge thing where I was making 4, 5, 10 calls a day or a night. But it was one of the most enjoyable things to hear the success of these kids and how impressed they were that the head of the school was calling them on their birthday even after they graduate. And I just
Mm,
talked to a couple of them just the last few days that graduated years ago, and hearing their success and what they feel about Fairmont is that's the reward that we get. That's the best reward.
yeah. Yeah. So, David, you mentioned earlier, and you talk about this in the book as well, that you didn't like school as a child. I wonder if you were able to go to Fairmont, what would have been different for you? What is it about Fairmont that creates that sort of joyful learning environment?
That's the thing that just blew me away when I first took over and I started talking to the teachers and going into the classrooms and seeing the interaction between the teachers and the students in themselves and how happy they were and how much they loved going to school. And we'd see, especially when new kids would come in, at first they were a little bit scared, and then pretty soon their parents would come in and, I don't want to go home. I like it.
Hmm.
And it was just awesome. But the difference was that I really saw that because we'd focused on the teacher that really fit and was great and was there because they really wanted to be. And I don't want to put down teachers as a whole. The thing I love about this education field is almost all teachers that I've seen, public, private, wherever, when they come into it, they want to make a difference. They were inspired by a teacher or something, some reason to get into it, because you don't get into teaching because it pays so well. It doesn't pay that well for the amount of work you put into it for the good ones. And but the system kind of, in many cases, kind of burns them out where we give them the ability. I have so many teachers that would come in and from other schools and especially public schools, but even some private schools and saying, wow, here I can focus my whole time on the students and on teaching. I don't have to worry about all the discipline and worry about being a fireman and a policeman. I can focus on this, and you guys give me everything I need to be successful. And the kids there want to be there. It's
Mm.
the nice thing of a private school. Unfortunately, I have to say, I've expelled quite a few kids, and sometimes I've expelled, in fact, my own self as the head of the school, I've probably expelled more kids because of the way their parents were than the way the kids were, because we don't have to put up with disruptive families, disruptive parents. But 99% of them come in and they fall in love with it, and they're great. Uh, I have I had I've had this happen several times. It just really kind of bugged me that a family that just what they wanted was we couldn't do it. And they wanted things that saying, I can't accomplish that. You're wanting things that aren't possible for us. You're gonna have to find another school. They got all upset and they said, there isn't another school like this. And I said, well, why are you so upset with us? Well, you're the best of the worst.
Mm.
I feel like all of them out there are bad, but you're at least the best of those. And going, okay, I want to be the best of the best. I want
Right.
I want to help other schools to be better, and that's been one of my drives for years. But I saw what you can do by focusing on teachers, giving them everything that they need, and holding their feet to the fire. And that sounds kind of maybe brutal a little bit, but it's just really true. But you find, we have teachers that have been with us for 20, 30, 40. I even had one employee that was with us for 55 years. But she was actually a cook and then other things. But uh, it's just great to see that you can have a really happy family, but they like being surrounded by equally great teachers and equally great students. And everybody wants to work. You create a school, tell them, we've created schools of nerds. But when everybody is a nerd, it's cool to be a nerd. It's cool to be smart. It's cool to work hard. And that's the kind of environment you want to create. And I found that we had so many kids that came in. I don't know. I think I shared this story with you before when we first talked, that uh, one of my favorites, in fact, I'm going to be talking to her tomorrow. Again, she graduated about 20 years ago. I had met her on the campus, and I was touring around actually a couple of public school principals that I knew and our high school. And I found her and I stopped her, and she had a few minutes to talk. And I asked her if she could tell us about her experience at Fairmont. And she just went on, talked about all of her teachers from ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th. She was a senior and just raved about everything. And she had been accepted to a top um, doctor's medical school, sorry. And she was just so excited. She had was letting me know that she had already taken a bunch of her AP exams and had gotten fives on all of them. And it just sounded like this kid is just brilliant. Then I asked her, had where she'd gone before. She embarrassed me a little bit and said, "Mr. Jackson, don't you remember me? I've been here since preschool." I said, "Of course I do, but I just was checking." But then she went on and told us about all of her teachers from preschool all the way through and how incredible they were. And I realized this was one of the first students that I fully recognized that she had, to put it bluntly, the size that we got lots of teachers. She had some of our best teachers all the way through, and she was just raving. And I knew that she was a fantastic student. And I speak at all of our graduations, and I love to go ahead and kind of embarrass the kids a little bit and talk to them about some of the things that happened to them when they were in kindergarten or first grade, that they did a play and they played a mouse or something, and to share personal things about their experience at the school. So I got her records so I could go ahead and see who her teachers were and talk to them. And I was shocked. This kid I knew was just one of those born brilliant kids, straight A, and probably 150 IQ. I saw in her report card that she was mostly B's and C's and even some D's and a couple of F's in lower elementary, where she was just really struggling. But I read the notes from the teachers, and they were encouraging her and letting her know that she could do better. And I saw that her grades got better and better. By upper elementary school, she had maybe a couple of A's and mostly B's. By junior high, she had all A's and B's. By high school, it was all straight A's. And I realized we took an average kid and we helped her become a superstar. I was so impressed with that. And I wanted to find out how many other kids at Fairmont were that way. And I did a big study. I hired somebody special just to go through all of our records and check for 6 years. And I found that almost a third of our students had started that were quote unquote average kids like I was and like so many others. And they all that stayed all the way through, every one of them was accepted to one of the top 100 schools in the nation. And they didn't all become straight A students. Some of them got through and they were still getting B's and even some C's, but they were all accepted to the top universities because they believed in themselves and they didn't give up. And the schools recognized that Fairmont put out such a strong student that they didn't have to be straight A students to get into UCLA or USC and some of the other top schools and Eastern schools, including even some of the Ivy Leagues, which are incredibly difficult to get into. But
Yeah.
so,
So it seems like staffing is part of the secret sauce of Fairmont's success, recruiting and retaining the very best teachers. For the school founders and aspiring school founders listening, what do you say to them as some strategies for how to hire and keep the best teaching talent?
okay. I did spend definitely spend more time on the interview process and checking, checking their references and just it's really worth the time. I found that I had times where I heard that some teachers I was taking longer than they wanted to, and I lost some, and it's kind of a shame.
Mm,
But I want to find teachers that want to be here because they recognize we would bring them in after getting through several things and checking everything out. And if we see these are the ones we really want, we brought them in and we had them teach a class for several hours with some of my top teachers and others observing. And that's intimidating. That's difficult.
Yeah.
But we need to see, if what they're going to be like. And if they're, if they pass that, we would go ahead and hire them and have them come in. The ideal was if we could get them to come in during our summer school and actually work for us with summer school, and we'd be trained by some
Mm.
of our key teachers, and then we would start them out. I have other goals that I've always been trying to do, but it's there you got to be a much bigger school to be able to hire them in advance and have them actually work for you full time as we call them guest teachers, but substitute teachers, and let them spend the year with you being trained by your top teachers and really seeing that this really is who you want. And then we go ahead and keep them on and give them a regular classroom. Um, but I've done that a little bit, but most of the time it's just spending enough time and really making sure. And being frank, really quickly, if you see that it wasn't a match and that you messed up, making the change quick. And that's the beauty, and even in California where the legal system makes it pretty difficult to be a boss. That first year, you have every right to go ahead and say, "I'm really sorry, but Kerry, this is just not the right place for you, for us. It's not working. Let me help you to find something else, but I need to go ahead and replace you."
Mm.
Um, those are the hardest things, and it's painful because 99% of the time they're really good people and you like them. And but if it's not a fit, it's not a fit, and you have to do that. And that's what I learned in my previous businesses, and it really fits here. It's not fair to them either because they will never be successful with the kind of team that you have if they don't really fit in, and for lots of different reasons. So, but that was the hardest part of getting and keeping the greatest teachers was getting the rest of my administrative team to be tough enough to say, this is not working and we got to go ahead and find someone else. And actually, we don't do that until we find somebody else too, unless they're, well, I don't go there.
Well, just great wisdom there about being very intentional when hiring staff and then making sure to make changes when needed as quickly as possible. I think that's great advice. So, as we begin to wind down our conversation, David, I'd love to talk a little bit about where you're at now in your career, what's ahead for you. I know when we spoke previously before recording, you were talking about how you really want this sort of next phase of your life to be about inspiring others. That was part of the motivation for you writing your book, landing at the top, and the work that you're doing to still be a promoter of education entrepreneurship. Tell us what you're doing now and what's next for you.
You know, one of the second hardest decision I started to say before, my first really difficult decision was when I decided to step down as the director of a campus and become the executive director over all the campuses and realize I can help more kids that way. But I loved being the campus director and working directly with the teachers and the students. That was that was painful when I first had to do that. The second painful one was when I made the decision to sell the schools and step down from that. And it was hard, but I found a really great organization that I really believe in, and they so far are coming through. It was 2 years ago, but with the funds I was able to do that, I'm able now to help a lot more kids. I started a foundation that is primarily aimed at helping families to be able to find a great private school and afford it. And most of them come to Fairmont School, but we help other ways. But that is one of my great passions to work with the foundation to help them find the money or to get the money, give them the money from myself and others to help more kids that can afford it. The other part is I just like when I've talked to the people that stand together at one of their conferences, I really was excited saying I've always liked helping others to make a decision to go ahead and start a business, or in particular, school business. And I want to still be involved and help out as ways that I can. I wish I had more time, wish I could clone myself to do a lot more, but anybody that wants to get going, I know there's your organization and a lot of the others are there to help. I'd like to be a part of that, and we need more and better great schools and great teachers. And that's what, between helping people find the right schools and helping people create the right schools, is some of the greatest things I can do.
Ah,
So,
so great. We do need more great schools and great teachers. And I've been, just so excited by the amount of entrepreneurship in this space, the amount of innovation occurring from entrepreneurial parents and teachers who just decide they can do things better than the conventional school system and go off and do that. So, for some final advice, David, if you have someone listening who's been thinking about starting their school, maybe again, they're a longtime teacher, educator, or they have that entrepreneurial drive, what advice would you give to them to get started?
I think find somebody that maybe has done something like this to be a little bit of a mentor to you, to help encourage you to, some of the first questions that I would ask when somebody came to me and said they would like to do this, whether it was one of my teachers or someone else, was to find out why you want to do it. And I would run into some people and say, well, I just want to be my own boss, and I want to be in charge, and I want to make lots of money. And I'd say, well, that's great. I don't think getting into the school business would be the right thing for you. If you really want to make a difference with kids and you have a plan and things that you feel like you see what needs to be done, then let's go ahead and get started with it. And as I've watched a lot of the micro school situations going, you start it being a homeschooler, you start it with your own. If you are already there and you want to expand it, then you got to figure out how hard you're willing to work. And if you put together a team, a lot of ways it's good to find another partner or somebody else that you really get along with, that you can really work out with. And of course, then you got to start working on the finances too. Um, but if you want to, and I just, everybody's not super religious or whatever. I wish they were, because I really believe that with God's help, you can do anything, and you can do it without Him, maybe, but I don't believe you can be near as successful. And I spend a lot of time on my knees praying and asking for guidance and help, and it really works, and make the right decisions that way. Um, and I think that's the greatest thing. And just don't give up. One of the things I've coined that I've shared in the book is, if you don't ask, the answer is no. And if you don't keep trying, you're still going to get no's. Just because you get a no the first time, don't give up on it. But you're going to be surprised at how many times that you even think, oh, this person's never going to go along with this, or that this isn't going to work. Believe in yourself and don't give up, and it works. And when it doesn't work, you'll learn what doesn't work, and you can go ahead and make adjustments and do something different and make it work. But just don't give up. And I think there's so many gurus out there that share that, and just you got to listen to it. If you don't have what it takes to believe in yourself that way, then that's probably not going to work. You have to be able to. You won't be risk taking if you don't believe in yourself. And I know that God has created us all and given us all kinds of different talents. They're all different, but find those talents and then go for it and make it work.
Yeah, believe in yourself. Don't give up. Such great advice for today's entrepreneurs, whether in education or any other sector. So, David, the website for Fairmont Schools is fairmontschools.com.
Right.
And your book, again, the title is Landing at the Top: How Embracing Adventure Leads to Extraordinary Success, which is available wherever books are sold. Any final parting thoughts from you, David?
I I also have my own website, davidrjackson.com, and that's another way to get in touch with me. There's a thing there. Part of me would love to give out my phone number and email, but I will end up getting overwhelmed. But through the davidrjackson.com would really work. I also have you can find me on LinkedIn and in Facebook. Um, I'm not as active, but I'm going to try and get more active because I'm trying to promote more entrepreneurial spirit and people doing things
Mm.
and just going out there and doing it. That's why I wrote the book. I saw so many kids and how well we were help them at Fairmont, but I see so many others that go, "Oh, I could never do that." Saying, read this and see all the different things. If somebody like myself that had a whole bunch of different challenges could go ahead and do it and had my parents divorced and just thought that was just terrible. And then, having a stepfather come in that was just incredible. That blessed my life a lot. There's so many other ways that it can bless your life. And there's so many people that have proved that even the ones that have had a terrible life, some of the most successful people out there, and now you see they had a terrible childhood, or they had a terrible marriage or other things, and they overcame that and didn't give up and are doing really, really wonderful. And you can do that too. And especially in education, if you believe in yourself and you believe you can do it, you can make a difference in so many kids' lives. And that's the best payback of anything. I had share one of my last stories. I had a student that he only went through our eighth grade because I didn't have a high school at the time. And he called me one day. We take our kids, our eighth graders, to Washington, D.C. for a trip. And I went on, I think 30 years in a row, I went on that trip with all of our students, even though my wife and everybody else says, "You're spending a week with junior high kids, eighth graders in Washington, D.C., 150 to 175 eighth graders. You got to be nuts." I said, "No, I loved it." And they were great. He called me and he said, "Are you still going to Washington, D.C.?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "When you come out this year, I'd like to go ahead and I can give you a special tour of the White House because I've been hired by the President of the United States to be his speechwriter." I went, "Oh, this is fantastic." And I I said, "Okay, we're going to go ahead and do it." Unfortunately, I was so excited because I've always been enthralled with the White House and the presidency and that. And in fact, I told him, I said, his name was Lon He Chin. Lon He, do you think that I'd be able to go into the Oval Office? And he says, "I can get you into the Oval Office, even if the president's not there. But if he's there, I can get you in to meet the president too." And I went, "That would be the most incredible thing." So unfortunately, that was, we always went to Washington, D.C. in November each year because we found it wasn't as crowded and we would go there during the Veterans Day, which was a great time. We almost always got to see the president because there was something going on at Arlington or whatever. And but it was 2001, and September 2001 was a terrible thing. And when Lonnie called me about 2 days after that and said, "Are you still coming?" And I said, "Yeah, everybody's freaked out, but I'm going to come out there and check it out." And he said, "Well, when you do, I'd like to meet with you." And I got there and he said, "Unfortunately, I can't get you into the White House. It's on lockdown." And I met with him and he blew me away. He told me all the experiences that he'd had there of just meeting with the president the first time in the Oval Office, riding with him on the airplane, playing golf with him, writing his speeches. And he said, "I've had the most incredible life." And it's unbelievable. I just loved it. And then at the ending part, he said, "And it was all because of you, because I because you taught me to believe in myself so well." And I said, "Lonnie, I didn't teach." And he said, "No, you had a school and you brought in teachers that were so great that inspired me so much that I could do this, that I got into Harvard and and I ended up working for the president." And it just that kind of thing. I've talked to him many times since then, and it's just, but I hear that kind of story so many different times that their lives are changed because of the teachers that we've hired, because of the school, because of the kids that they're surrounded with that all also believe in themselves. And that's what it really works. It's fantastic. So
Yeah, it's the
go out there and
power.
make it happen for everybody else. Uh, it's the greatest joy you can have of seeing the growth. You know, the things I hear from parents. I still can't go hardly anywhere that I don't run into somebody that is either their kids went there, they went. I have numerous kids that have their kids are going to school now that graduated from Fairmont, and I have some that their grandkids are going to Fairmont now. That's the trouble with getting really old. You get, now most of these kids are more like great grandkids to me, but it's awesome.
What a great story. And I think really speaks to the power of education and of entrepreneurship to really change lives. And certainly today, David, you've been an inspiration for education entrepreneurs, both current and future. Just so grateful for your time today. And thank you so much for being on the LiberatED podcast.
Thank you, Kerry, and I hope that more people will go out and buy my book. It's something I really feel inspired with, and if I ever do make any money on it, it's all going to the Orange County Education Foundation to help more kids. So thank you, and God bless you, and all of you. Let's go out there and make a difference.